of mine the other day. My friend says that he's thinking about getting out of the mortgage business and getting into something else. And that's really exciting because it's always very exciting when somebody's going to change jobs and do something else. So I ask him, I say, what are you going to do now? My friend thinks for a minute, and then he begins to ramble off a long list of professions. And I'm talking, he's saying that he could be a scientist or a weatherman or a bookie or live in the wilderness. He's going on and on and on with this list for 3 or 4 minutes, and I'm just standing there listening to him as he announces all the different jobs he could go into. So at the end of that, I let him finish, and then I say, all right, do you want to do any of those jobs? Do you actually want to do any of these things that you just named? He thinks about it again. And then he says, you know, what I'd really like to do is just produce on a TV show. Why he had to list all these other jobs, I have no idea. But is it indicative that my friend is indecisive, or is it just what most people do? Are most people simply out there doing a job that may not be exactly the job they want to do, or pursuing something that may not be what they want to pursue? This may be like you. This may sound like a friend of yours or a relative, and if it does, then get a pen and a piece of paper and take some notes today, because I want to encourage you to strive to pursue what you're passionate about. Thank you. Mid-speech applause. Amazing. Even if you don't want to be famous or be a millionaire, I think everybody wants to be recognized for doing at least a good job. But the kind of people that do a good job, are they the kind that go to work and kind of slime through something, they just want to get done with the day and get out of there? Those people usually don't get to the top. You could even be a good worker, you could do a good job, you could be good at what you do, but you ultimately won't reach the top unless you're very passionate about what you're doing. Let me give you an example of a guy that was passionate about what he's doing. All right, there's a 36-year-old man, Jonathan Colton. Jonathan Colton had a good high-paying computer programming job, and he had a baby. And he decided to keep the baby and ditch the job and decided to be a rock star. He wanted to break into music at 36 years old, which music, if you've ever put in your resume to apply for a job in music, is a difficult field to break into, especially 36. Being 36 doesn't help because everybody wants like a 20-year-old rock star, but he's 36. He decided he was just going to do it. Believe it or not, Jonathan Colton has actually been successful at being a 36-year-old musician with no prior musical experience coming into it because he's been persistent, because he has a passion that has fed into persistence. Now, what has he done? He's consistently put out new material, he's relentlessly promoted himself, and he's always looking for ways as an artist that he can improve himself and get his name out there. He had those same talents when he was a computer programmer. He always had it in him. He just chose not to use it because he really didn't care about being a computer programmer. He didn't care enough to try to use these skills to make himself better. It wasn't what he was passionate about. Persistence, though, a lot of times persistence will only last as deep as your pocketbook is, because ultimately we all have to eat and nobody wants to be lonely and live under a bridge. So we need to have money coming in somehow. You may think that whatever you're passionate about, whatever you would like to pursue, isn't worth the money. Nobody would pay you for it, and therefore you couldn't make that a living. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised what people will pay for. People will pay for some weird things. There was a girl who was 14 years old, and her hobbies were going online, talking to friends online, surfing the internet, and MySpace. That's what she liked to do. So she bought a website devoted just to these hobbies of hers. So she could create a website and tell everybody how much she liked going online, how much she liked MySpace, how fun it all was. That was 2 years ago. Now she's 16 years old. At 16, she's a millionaire. She is a millionaire from a website that designs icons for MySpace. So people can go and put these on their MySpace pages and show all their friends. It's a hobby that a lot of parents would say is an absolute waste of time. Something that they shouldn't even be doing, that they're not going to have any real productivity out of it. Her mom works for her now. She's hired her mom to manage her processes for her. But it just goes to show you that a hobby that otherwise you might not have thought of as something that could produce a lot of money, she's set. She's bought a house. Hers is paid off. She's ahead of a lot of people. I'm sure very many of us would be happy to have $1 million from a hobby that we have. But not everybody wants $1 million either, because $1 million you have to figure out where you're going to put it, and you have to open a bank account if it gets too much. So $1 million can be a problem in and of itself. Not everybody wants $1 million. Maybe you just want to make an impact on the world. You just want to leave your little mark behind so people remember you and they think about all the good things you've done. When was the last time, and just think for a minute, that you heard the president or a priest or a Nobel Prize winner, when's the last time you heard any of them moping about it was their backup plan to become the president, a priest, Nobel Prize winner? When do you ever see any of them that just kind of fell into that? Nobody fell into these jobs. They got into these jobs because they are passionate about it and they pursued it. I'd say that one of the most maligned figures of today's age and time is Bill Gates. Everybody hates Bill Gates. They think that he's so bad and he didn't come up with anything creatively on his own. But if you know the history of the man, where he really came from, when he was 14 years old, he became interested in computer programming. That's when he got hands on his first computer, and he just went from there. And it was about a decade from just playing around and growing that passion until he actually founded Microsoft and began to work on it. But it was his passion that drove him to create these ideas where these products already existed. A lot of the basic tools that he needed to create his products, they were there. Other people didn't see any potential in them. He didn't set out one day and decide he was going to be a billionaire. I'm just going to go and become a billionaire and look at me. He didn't do that. He was able to do that because he was passionate about computer programming, because he put these ideas together and found new combinations and new products where nobody else recognized it. That doesn't deserve us to condemn it. Everyone should give him credit for that. Now, my speech today isn't a declaration that you should all quit your jobs and run out and become acrobats or whatever you want to do or pursue your ultimate dream. It's not that, because we do have responsibilities. We have things we have to think about. But the key is that sometimes life is very busy, and we forget what it is we're really doing because we're so busy. We forget what we were working towards or what we used to want to do. People forget about that. So what I want you to do is just think, is what I'm working towards, is what I'm working to get at, what I really want to be working towards. There's a difference. Sometimes we think we want things that we don't really want. We get confused, we forget. I'm one of those people from that school of thought that thinks that talent and passion are very closely linked, that you can't have one without the other, that talent derives from passion. There's a quote from Stephen King, it's not scary or anything, but it's a quote from him that I think about it a lot because it's a very good quote. And he says that everybody has talent. Talent is easy to find. You can look at almost any person and find talent. But it's difficult to find somebody who will use that talent and who will work to develop that talent. So basically, you can break people down into two groups. The group that will use their passion and try to live that passion, or the group that won't. So which group are you in? Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you.
Thank you.